Hey everyone, I'm Jordan, also known as Mighty Jor, and this is my brother Brett.
Howdy.
And we are going to talk about our first impressions of Elden Ring.
Elden Ring. The ratings are in. Elden Ring is perfect.
Elden Ring is 100% perfect. There
You
are
heard
no
it
flaws.
here first.
Yeah, but they kind of said similar stuff about the other Dark Souls games. I mean, people claim those are the perfect example of fair but hard, but what is it? Challenging but fair?
That's what they say, yes.
That's what they say. And there's a big tree boss in Dark Souls 1 that will argue the opposite point.
Oh, yeah. Bed of Chaos.
Bed of Chaos, yeah.
Ugh.
And the giant dragon that breathes fire on you. And the, what's the Blight Town that's just covered in poison.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that's not fair in that game.
Okay.
At all.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. And I'm definitely a shill for the Souls games.
Yeah.
But I'll agree. I don't think any of them are perfect.
So I would agree with that assessment.
So imagine my surprise when Elden Ring came out and 10 out of 10s across the board.
Yeah. So this is, I guess we'll start with our first impressions. And I guess we'll start by saying you are big Souls fan. Mm-hmm. I am kind of Souls fan.
You've played through all of them.
I've played through all of them.
Other than Sekiro?
I've played like the first level of Sekiro. It just,
Okay.
I didn't really vibe with it very well.
And we played through all of them together, right? You didn't play any of them by yourself?
And I didn't play all that much of Bloodborne. Although I did play a little bit of Bloodborne last night because I had to take care of the baby downstairs. And upstairs is where I have Elden Ring. So I did not play Elden Ring, but so I wanted to play more Elden Ring.
You had to get your Elden Ring fixed by playing Bloodborne is what you're saying.
Exactly. And where Bloodborne really didn't click with me before, it's clicking with me more now that I think...
Interesting.
We'll get more into this, I think, but as far as...
I would say Bloodborne, up until now, was the most beginner-friendly of all the Souls games. Like, it was the most accessible to someone who hadn't, like, tried the series before. Now I think Elden Ring has eclipsed Bloodborne as far as, like, accessible immediately to someone who isn't familiar with the Souls series.
Yeah, and... the thing I'll say about Elden Ring is it is definitely much more accessible. There are things about every single one of these Souls games, including Elden Ring, that if you don't look up a guide or if you don't know what you're doing, you've never played a Souls game before, you're going to have no idea what's going on.
I can agree with that. And Elden Ring, I mean, to be fair, like, especially because it's an open world game, like, there's just so many more spots to get lost in. But at the same time, sort of a double-edged sword, because obviously you're more likely to get lost because there's so like where do I go? But at the same time, everywhere you go, there is something to do. Yeah. So
well, I'll here's what I think is one of the biggest flaws in every single Souls game.
The co-op.
Well, definitely the co-op. We'll get into that for sure. But what happens in a Souls game, and this is where I think going into first impressions for Elden Ring and general things about Elden Ring, every single time you play a Souls game, you go up to a boss or something that's going to be just this huge stopping point where you can't get past it unless you prove you're good enough to get past it. So, like in the very first Dark Souls, you could get to that boss and you could think, hey, I've got to fight this in the starting area. For those who don't know, you start in this area and this giant beast just falls out of the sky and lands, and you might think you have to fight that thing because in every other game you see a boss, you fight it. So that's just one example of like, oh, I guess I have to run away.
Right.
But here's the problem, though, is when you get to other areas, like, for example, if you wanted to go at the very beginning of Dark Souls, the very first one, if you go into the graveyard and you just think, oh, I guess I have to figure this out and I guess I have to power through it, you don't realize that you might, like I did the very first time I played, I didn't realize there were other places to go.
Oh, so you're talking about like going straight towards the catacombs?
Yeah, if you went straight towards the catacombs,
got it.
You might not realize, oh, there's another path that's much easier.
Yeah.
Which is definitely a problem with all the Souls games, I would say, up until Elden Ring.
Right.
Because Elden Ring is the only one where you can say, okay, this is too hard.
Yeah.
And there's a billion other places I could go. Because you might not know there's another path in Dark Souls. They're so cryptic about everything. Yeah. So Elden Ring definitely makes it clear from the beginning there's a bunch of different places you could go.
Yeah. And now would probably be a good time to mention each of us have only put probably about 10 hours into Elden Ring so far.
So this is a first impressions video.
Yeah, we're not reviewing the full game. We haven't played the full game. We're both about equal amount of time. I think I'm a little further than you are.
Maybe.
But about the same amount of time put into the game. Because you said you haven't beaten Mildred.
It sounds like...
Morden. Whatever. The first main story boss. You haven't beaten yet. I have beaten him.
Yeah. I probably could beat him at the point I'm at, though.
I was going to say, so I initially approached that guy, and he kicked my butt. Absolutely swept the floor with me. And it was like, rather than other Dark Souls games where it's like, oh man, I've reached this point where now I literally just have to get good. Like, there's nothing else I can do, you know, like I could go back and farm the same enemies over and over and over again and get another like 3 stat points, which stat points don't even really increase my stats very much. Or I just got to learn his patterns, learn his moves, figure out what he's weak against, whatever, and power through it. But with Elden Ring, I reached him and I was like, man, he kicked my butt. I'm just going to go and get a bunch of new items. I'm going to upgrade my flasks. I'm going to get some spirit summons. And I'm going to come back to this guy with items and equipment. And I'm going to kick his butt. And that's exactly what happened. Like,
Yeah.
I've never really felt like in a Souls game, like my character actually got to a point where the character was better and was able to defeat the boss, whereas usually it's just like I feel like I got better, and I don't know if that's a plus or a minus. You know,
Well, I think you definitely got better. How much spoilers talk do we want to do? Because obviously we can't spoil the whole game. We've only done 10 hours, but
I mean, I'll say if we're showing my gameplay, there's probably going to be at least like areas and bosses and stuff being spoiled.
okay. And neither of us, is your gameplay going to show outside of the main starting area?
I definitely did go outside of those areas, but I cannot include those parts in the video, or I can and just have just kind of a straight shot.
Well, I've done some areas that I found that I haven't seen in any trailers. Like,
yeah, same. I have to.
And they were
we can talk about
really cool.
Yeah, we could talk about maybe like
so
mild
just
spoilers.
say mild spoilers.
Okay,
like if you've played 10 to 15 hours, you know what we've seen, kind of thing.
And I think I might know which area at least you're gonna bring up. Is it the one where you go up to a chest and it warps you somewhere else?
So you're talking about near the dragon?
Yes.
Yeah, so I do want to talk about that because that was one of the coolest Dark Souls experiences I think I've ever had. But no, it wasn't that. It was there's this one part. If you go to one of the giant trees, I think it's called like a minor tree, so it's maybe not the biggest tree.
Oh,
but
yeah,
there's
the
a
minor Erd tree.
Yeah, minor Erd tree. And you descend
and
down.
There's a well that takes you down to
like another world,
and it's literally like the size of that map, but it's like the underground area.
Yeah.
So I actually do have a lot of footage of that area. So
okay,
I think
so we're gonna spoil that.
Yeah. So
that was like when like in the initial area where you look around, I was like, okay, this looks like Dark Souls.
Yeah.
But then when you go in that area, I just thought, okay, there's a lot more to this.
Yeah, this is something
really
new.
Cool.
Yeah.
And that's just such like a beautiful area too.
I agree.
Like walking around and you're just killing crabs like the other areas, and I guess zombie ghosts and stuff. But
yeah,
I finished the whole area.
You can really.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out what to do in some spots, so I went back up, but I did spend like a good 45 minutes down there.
Oh, it's actually not that long. It's more like a straight shot to the end.
Oh, okay. All right. I might head back there.
Yeah, and there's a big lake, and was there a boss? There might have been like some small minor bosses, but I don't think so.
I didn't find any bosses, but there might be because I didn't explore it very thoroughly.
Yeah.
I definitely got a lot of runes there.
Yeah, so I got a ton of runes, ton of good weapons and ashes of war and all that stuff.
Yeah, and part of what I was saying about you really you stand to benefit from going off the beaten path in this game. Like that was just like a random it was next to the tree. It was just like kind of an unassuming little building. I was like, oh, I wonder what this is.
Yeah,
and a 3-minute long elevator ride down.
I was like, it just kept going. I was like, oh man. Oh yeah. Sorry, you just gotta add that music in.
Oh yeah. Okay. I will.
What a thrill.
Yeah, so I thought it was just going to be one of those, because they have these little stations where you teleport and fight a big boss. And I thought it was going to be one of those when I went in there. And I thought, I'll just try it out, see what kind of boss is here. And I didn't realize it was going to be this whole area, which was super cool.
Yeah.
Not that it was all that secretive to find. It isn't a giant building, so I imagine almost everyone will find it by the end of their playthrough.
Right.
But
assuming they decide to go towards that tree, which I don't know who wouldn't.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, there's a giant tree and it's right there, and it's on the map. Like, why wouldn't you go check that out?
Yeah, and there's a golden seed right next to it where that you have to pick up.
Yeah.
And there's a big castle and kind of funnels you there with that one dude's side quest. I don't know if you did that yet. We have to take his castle back. It was like a beta.
Oh, I definitely talked to the girl who gave me that quest, but I haven't actually.
Oh
seen
yeah,
through the
this
quest
is a girl that gives you it. The one with the jellyfish summon.
Yeah, well, so
Yeah.
I've talked to her twice.
Uh-huh.
Because she gave me the jellyfish summon, and then I ran into her in another spot. She was like sitting on the road right as I was entering that area, and she talked to me again.
Yeah, so you talk to her, and then there's this guy that's just like standing on a big thing, and he's just like, hey, come help me and stuff, and then you talk to him, and he tells you to go conquer the castle.
I don't think I talked to him, no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that was kind of the area where I found all this stuff and had a lot of fun with that.
Gotcha.
So as far as like first impressions go,
Yeah.
what do you think? First impressions. What were your first impressions when you first booted up the game, and you decided you wanted to play through this?
I will say it's the fastest I've ever gotten hooked on a Souls game. Pretty much, like I love the series, but every single time a new Souls game comes out, it definitely takes me at least a couple hours, maybe even more, to like understand it. Be like, oh, it's clicking now, and now I love it. And like it took me until Bloodborne, and I played every single Dark Souls game up to Bloodborne, and then finally Bloodborne was the one where it did click, and that one probably clicked the fastest. And then I went back and played the others. And Dark Souls 3 I didn't love immediately. Sekiro I definitely didn't love immediately. That one took me probably like a good 10 to 15 hours before I was like, okay, I get it. Like I
still do not understand Sekiro.
I'm trying to think of there's a boss, Genichiro. He's like the 7th or 8th boss or something, and once I got to that fight and once I beat him, I was like, I understand Sekiro. I now know how to play the game. Because up until that point I was just kind of like just guessing everything, you know?
Yeah.
Just kind of trying what worked and just somehow managed my way to brute force my way through a lot of bosses. But then you realize like the gameplay is different than anything you've done in a Souls game up to that point. But with Elden Ring, I legitimately felt like from the moment the open world, like the moment you emerge from the building and you see everything that's happening and there's the guy on the horse that rides towards you, I was like, I get this game. Like I understand, and I'm 100% in. I genuinely feel like if I didn't have a job and a personal life and I didn't have to eat and sleep, I think I might not ever stop playing it.
Yeah, like right now I just kind of wish I was playing Elden Ring.
Yeah. Like I'm watching this gameplay on the other monitor and I'm like, man, I wish I was doing that.
Yeah. Well, I've killed a bunch of these giant guys at this point now.
That's how I.
Yeah.
Have you fought the Deathbird yet?
What is that? Is that a boss?
It's a boss. It only appears at night in this one particular area.
Then no, I haven't fought it.
It was a really fun fight because there's one of these big giant guys is right next to it, and you can pull him, and then like he'll be swinging at you, but you can use him to hit the boss.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really, really fun. And I feel like that's like it could only be possible in an open world Souls game.
Yeah. Oh, you definitely can't bring in another boss because for the most part in Dark Souls, you're stuck. When you're fighting a boss, a big fog wall comes up and you can't do anything about it.
It's linear and you're sealed off in every scenario pretty much. Sekiro was probably similar to this one though, in that it had the major bosses, and anytime you're fighting a major boss you were sealed off, which is the same kind of scenario in this one. When you get to major bosses, you get sealed off. But Sekiro also had a lot of bosses that were like off the beaten path and kind of just out in the open. But I feel like Elden Ring took like that little idea that Sekiro had and like put it out on a much bigger scale.
Yeah. So going back to what you were talking about with like your first impressions on Sekiro and these other Dark Souls games. I think for me it was Dark Souls 3 when we played co-op that it kind of clicked for me, like the whole point of Dark Souls. Because I really didn't get it when I first played it, and especially Dark Souls 1. I played that on PS3 or whatever, like years and years ago. I never played Demon Souls, so sorry guys. But
I have.
Yeah, I know you've played it. You've played them all. But Dark Souls 1, it wasn't until we played through them co-op that I kind of got them, and then I went back and I played through them. But even then, like I haven't really just sat down and like seen every square inch of these maps. Like Dark Souls 2, I haven't actually beaten. Dark Souls 3 we beat.
Yeah, Dark Souls 2 we gave up on, but that game also is not that great. So
yeah, well,
we can do a whole other video on Dark Souls 2.
Yeah,
but
It's better than I think people give it credit for, but I think at some point you just say, oh, okay, I'm moving on. There's Dark Souls 3 I can play, or Dark Souls 1. But what really clicks for me with Dark Souls and with Elden Ring in particular, it feels like if you were just to play the very first Legend of Zelda and you never played anything else from the Zelda series, and someone said, okay, make the sequel to this game, that is exactly what Dark Souls is, I think.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
They're like, there's no kooky character. I mean, there's kind of kooky characters, but like...
There's an old man that you have to blow up the side of a mountain to get to him, and he's like, oh, have my jewels or whatever.
Exactly. And there's just like tons of secrets and really obscure secrets, stuff like that. So to me, Dark Souls is kind of where The Legend of Zelda might have gone in an alternate universe. Which people talk so much about how hard it is, which it is, but what it really is it just kind of tries to mess with you. It's kind of tries to troll you. And it makes you so that if you run in and you just like attack like you do in any other game, like a hack and slash, you're going to die immediately. But it's not actually that hard. And I feel like that statement needs like an asterisk on it, because a lot of people that are huge fans of the Souls games will say, oh, it's not that hard, you just need to like figure it out. And it's like, I do agree with that to an extent, but it's not just about getting better at the game. It's about understanding what you're doing. It's about having patience. Like, it's not just a matter of like anybody can do it. Like, you do have to put in the time to like actually understand what's happening, and then it's not that difficult if you understand what's happening. And I should mention, it's not about like an esports guy where they have like super fast reflexes and they can do all this stuff. Like, you don't have to have these crazy reflexes to beat this game. You can just learn all the patterns. Like, you have to take your time, but you can beat Dark Souls no matter who you are. Well, I think there's definitely, people, maybe some accessibility options we could add, but for the most part, you can beat Dark Souls.
I think anybody who is a gamer could beat Dark Souls.
And one thing that should also be mentioned is, at least with Dark Souls 1, and I think I've seen it with the other ones, there are secrets that are so obscure that like the designers intended you to go on the internet and search out these solutions so that you can use them in the game. And I think that's probably what they've intended with Elden Ring too. But going back to the whole accessibility thing, this game made me appreciate the other Souls games so much more.
Okay, interesting.
Because like the other ones are very linear. You kind of feel like I'm playing this game co-op with the internet, because the internet has to tell me where to go and all this stuff. And for me, I don't like repeating the same boss 40 times. Like, you and I both are adults with jobs and stuff, and we don't have a ton of time, but when I can just go out and explore a world, to me this felt the most like, more like Breath of the Wild than it did Dark Souls.
I agree.
Which is so funny, because it literally is Dark Souls, like gameplay wise, but it feels like something else.
Yeah. And I think there's also like a lot of the things about previous Souls games that were so unforgiving have pretty much been completely eliminated from Elden Ring. Bosses are difficult, but in previous Souls games, it's like, oh, I died on that boss, and now I have to do a 7-minute run through this whole area to get back to the boss. And this game, I mean, like I said, only 10 hours in, so I can't speak for the whole game, but so far, every single boss that I've fought has had a checkpoint of some kind, like, immediately outside the boss door. And even, like, some of them are, like, you have to actually interact with an item to trigger the boss fight. So, like, you can even go back in and grab your souls before you even trigger the boss fight, rather than, like, entering a boss arena and having to run to your souls real quick and then fight the boss so you don't lose your souls. Like, I feel like they realized that being unforgiving isn't necessarily the best way to keep people playing, but also like to bring on new people. And I feel like this is the game where they want to bring on new people.
And I also think that's kind of a necessity with the open world design that they have now. Like, you could not make the old Dark Souls an open world the way this is and keep all those punishing things, because no one would play it. It would be frustrating and
I think real hardcore Souls fans probably would. That might be like their dream, but I think probably
your dreams are terrible, people.
Probably like 95 to 99% of gamers would not want to play that. Just that an unforgiving open world is not a fun game.
Yeah, well, kind of the way it is too with like the old Dark Souls is you are moving around and you hit a bonfire, and then you kind of have this rubber band that's stretching you further and further and further away from this bonfire, and it gets tenser and tenser and more scary as you go on. So the longer you're away from your bonfire, the more panicked you become.
Yeah.
Whereas in an open world game, that would be absolutely miserable for that tension to be on 100% all the time. So the fact that there's so many checkpoints, but also everything's so much more forgiving.
Yeah.
You don't have that same tension when you're getting like you can just get on your horse and run away from pretty much anything in the open world. So it's really not a big deal if you run across someone who's like way too hard for you. Like in the old Dark Souls, you run across a hard boss in the middle of a battlefield, you're screwed. You're gonna die.
Stuck, yeah.
Yeah, and you basically lost all your souls because you can't get all the way back there and get that and all that. But with Elden Ring, you can go all the way out. You can go as far as you want and be adventurous and explore, and not have that huge tension like knotting up in your shoulders as you're playing, which I think is fantastic. Like it's just so much fun.
I feel like, and that's another part of the game that I did want to like cover, is the horse aspect of it, which is
I do want to talk about that.
Yeah, kind of easy mode, in a way. Like, and people have always been begging for Dark Souls to have an easy mode, and I feel like Elden Ring does have an easy mode, also known as horse combat. Because you can use it to get away from anything, and you can pretty much kill anything from horseback.
Well, if you're in like an area with the with like a fog wall, I think
that's true. Yeah, there are areas where you can't summon the horse, and those are areas where you can't activate easy mode, unfortunately.
Yeah,
but
like Margit,
that's his name. We got it. Cool.
Yeah.
Freaking 10 minutes later. But yeah, so I feel like there's so many spots in this game that that I've been able to explore that in a traditional open world game, like even though you can go anywhere, like there's always going to be sections that are kind of like cordoned off and be like, you can go over here, but as soon as you step foot in there, we're going to kill you, so that like you don't explore too much too fast. But in Elden Ring, I genuinely feel like I could go anywhere on the map and the horse would be able to take me there.
Yeah.
Like I've gone all the way east on as far as it'll take me.
Same here.
Yeah, and not been killed because I'm just zipping past with the horse. And even I've encountered people that like is like, oh, that guy's blocking my path. So I think it wants me to turn around, but I'm on a horse, so I can just keep circling him and swiping at his feet until he dies. Yeah. And it's like, okay, yeah, I clearly wasn't supposed to go that way yet, but the game has given me the option to go that way if I choose to play that way.
Yeah, and so I guess I do want to ask you, what was because there's a new kind of chest that is new to the Souls series, that is both when I first heard about it, I thought that was the most horrible idea.
Oh, so you knew about it ahead of time?
Well, I don't know if I heard about it ahead of time or if I just read about it. No, I did. Okay, so here I read that there was a new kind of chest, but I didn't know what it was until it happened to me. And it first happened, I thought this is the worst thing that's ever happened in a Souls game.
Right. This is spoilers, by the way.
Spoilers for this chest. But so what was your experience? Tell us what happened.
So I entered a area that was ruins and killed a bunch of soldiers. And in previous ruins, there are staircases that lead down. Each ruin has 1 to 2 little like underground chambers that you can go in, and they always have treasure chests and give you some kind of upgraded item. This one particular ruin has the new kind of treasure chest, which spits out a cloud of, I don't even know what you'd call it, of energy, acid, mist, and teleports you to a completely different area of the game, one that's way, way higher level than where you're supposed to be, and they don't let you warp out of that area until you've reached this game's equivalent of a bonfire. So you're forced to trudge through a dungeon that's extremely higher level, and you have no way to get out of it. It's kind of like classic Dark Souls almost, but kind of even harder because it's a dungeon that's like it'd be like if in the first Dark Souls game you got stuck in the last dungeon at the beginning and you just had to get through it. Now when I got to that dungeon in Elden Ring, I did what any sane person would do, and I tried to fight everybody to no avail. And eventually I realized, you know what, I'm just going to sprint through this place. You exit the dungeon and you're on the opposite side of the map. Did it take you to like a poison swamp area, the one that you went into?
I don't know, because I was on horseback, and I don't think you get poison on horseback.
You don't. Was it kind of like a red?
It was like reddish swamp with like coral. It looked like coral.
Yeah. So we popped out in the same place. I wasn't sure. Maybe you hit.
I've actually hit 2 of these chests.
Oh, really? Okay, I've only hit the one. But it was kind of a blessing in disguise once I got out. Like, the dungeon was really, really difficult because there were like these calamari guys that were like shooting magic at me.
Yeah, that was the worst.
Once I got out of the dungeon, you're back in the open world, which, as we've said, once you're on the horse in the open world, you could pretty much go anywhere you want. And we're on the complete other side of the map. We didn't even have to ride there. We didn't have to go through the canyons and navigate our way there. We're just there, and there's items sprinkled in the open world, so we can grab all of those super high level runes. We can grab potentially high level equipment. I was able to kill a couple of the enemies out in the open world.
I killed a couple.
Circling them with the horse is like 1,000 runes per kill, which is like definitely the enemies that I was fighting in the main area was not giving me that. So it was like a good area to get my runes back up. And once you're out in the open world, I have the option to just warp back to the main area as soon as I'm ready, so I can spend as much time in this area as I want and then go back. So it was kind of like, at first it felt like Elden Ring being like, screw you, you gotta deal with this. But then once you get through that one really short, difficult part, it's like, now here's your reward. Like, go crazy. You have all this stuff to check out now. And I think that was really, really cool.
Yeah, well, it's great too, because it forces you to activate a checkpoint or a bonfire or whatever they call them, Lost Grace.
Lost Grace, yeah.
Yeah, in this area. So now on your map, you have like all your checkpoints in your spot where you've explored, but now you have this other one in case, I get bored in this area and I want to go explore further over here.
You can go back at any point you want.
Yeah, which is super cool. And so what happened was, when I hit that chest, obviously I had my initial oh crud moment and pooped myself. And then after that happened, then I got out of the cave with all the miners or whatever it is, and miners, M-E-I-N-E-R-S.
Correct, yes. Yeah. You're not killing children in Elden Ring.
Want to be clear about that.
Well, at least not in the first 10 hours.
Yeah, I don't think I've killed any children so far.
Yeah.
I killed a lot of little raccoons, which are
dude, I killed a sea turtle, or not a sea turtle, a tortoise, and it was probably the worst I've ever felt playing a video game.
Yeah, I'm actually really scared that it's going to keep track of how many eagles I've killed and just like hit me in the face with some Undertale choice thing.
Probably. Dude, it'd be really cool if like at some point in the game, it's like once you hit like 100 eagles killed, like a giant eagle, like King of the Eagles comes and just hits you with a random giant boss fight in the middle of the field at some point.
I mean, that would be really cool.
I feel like if any game was going to do it, Elden Ring would be the one to do it.
Yeah, at some point I stopped killing eagles because I just felt really bad.
Yeah, and I don't even know. I guess the feathers you can use to craft arrows. I'm not using them.
Yeah, I don't use arrows. But
I can craft throwing daggers, but I don't really use those either.
But anyway, so when I went to this other place, I managed to find a big carriage and a treasure chest that had a greatsword in it.
Ooh.
And that has completely changed my life in this game.
Did you have the proper stats to wield it?
You want double-handed. So I pretty much,
okay.
Yeah, so now I just double-hand.
So you're Gravelord swording it.
It is exactly what I'm doing. And you know what? Try it on the horse. It is like major hack status.
Dang, okay.
Because what he does is he takes it and he sticks it in the ground, and then he drags it across as you're riding and just kills anyone.
Are you doing a right trigger to do that?
That's the trigger, yeah. It's heavy, yeah.
Okay, because my greatsword does the same thing.
Yeah, and it is...
Yeah, just
so
anything in your path just gets destroyed. Yeah. That's awesome.
So that is awesome. And then going back to your point about the horse, which I want to talk about this because it is possibly my greatest Dark Souls moment of all time, which was my fight with the lake dragon.
Oh yeah. Which we'll show right now, because I mean my fight with it might have been different than yours, but I feel like mine was pretty epic too.
It's probably the same.
Yeah.
Which dragons in Dark Souls. for the entirety of all I can remember, with the exception of maybe what's that? The gaping dragon, I think in Dark Souls 1 is the one.
Yeah, that doesn't even really count. Well,
yeah, it doesn't.
You talking about the one in the sewers?
Yeah, the sewers with the big hole. That one was kind of fun, but
Yeah.
I feel like every single Dark Souls dragon boss has been a huge slog, a terribly designed mess of a boss fight.
Yeah.
Even though they look really cool, they are not fun at all to fight.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the coolest one is in Dark Souls 3, and it's not even, you don't even fight the dragon. It's
Is that where you have to jump and plunge on?
yeah,
them?
you jump. It's just because that's such like an awesome moment. It
Yeah.
just feels so epic. But yeah, again,
It's more like a set piece. Than
yeah,
an
it's
actual
not
fight.
really a fight. Yeah, I'll agree with that. Every
Yeah.
dragon I've fought. Actually, I think there was one in. No, that one sucked too. There was a DLC boss in the first one, I think.
Yeah.
That I didn't really like either.
But the Elden Ring dragon fights, when you're fighting them on the horse, that is exactly what these dragon fights needed. It was a horse, so you could ride around dodging dragons as they're breathing fire on you like Smaug.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's kind of like, from a game design perspective, how do you make someone on their feet, tiny, fight a giant dragon that can fly and blow fire and stomp its feet on the ground?
Yeah.
Like, that's not going to translate well to combat if you're just a guy on your feet just with a sword. But if you're a guy galloping around on a horse, and you can, as you ride by, swipe at its ankles, and you know, when it brings its head down to blow fire, you can quickly go around the fire and come around and hit him in the head, like right behind where he's hitting the flame. It's like, yeah, as long as you have a maneuverability option, you have an actual fight on your hands rather than just a stomping ground.
I totally felt like an old classic, like medieval warrior when I was fighting this dragon.
Yeah.
I thought, you know what? They're gonna tell legends about me in this world of Elden Ring.
Yeah.
Like, not about what I did to the eagles, but about what I did to this dragon.
Dragon.
now.
Yeah.
Well,
I agree.
You know what they should have had though is a little village next to it where all the villagers are just like
After
terrified.
you kill and after you kill the dragon, they all run out and they go, "You are
Exactly.
savior."
Yeah. Well, and they just appreciate what I did for them.
Well, I don't know if you saw when the dragon comes out, there's actually a group of people on that little island.
Oh, I thought it was like a cultist or something.
Well, I mean, they're enemies. Like, you could fight them, but the dragon swoops in and kills them all on his way down. I was like, all right, well, so much for that. Like, that was how I found the dragon. Was I was like, oh, I'm gonna go fight this group of guys, and then I was like, no, the dragon did that for me.
Yeah, so I definitely had a few moments in Elden Ring where it went from like, okay, like this is like, when I first started, I thought this is just Dark Souls, and then as time went on, I was like, okay, this is more like Breath of the Wild, and I'm really digging it. And then it was when that dragon fight happened that I thought, this is one of my favorite games I've ever played in my whole life, and I just want to play some more.
Yeah, it's a completely different, separate beast from any of the previous Souls games. I think it's a separate beast from any open world. Like, the closest I would say would be Breath of the Wild, but even then, I feel like it's kind of on another level.
Yeah, well, there's things about Breath of the Wild that I really don't like.
I agree.
I don't think I am being that controversial when I say like weapons breaking is annoying, and which is funny because weapons breaking has always been something in the Souls games.
Yeah, and
but
they took
got
it
rid
out
of
in Elden Ring.
for Elden Ring, which is just maybe they heard
like,
the feedback.
we're not
from
doing
Breath
the
of
same mistake that Breath of the Wild made.
Yeah, and the combat system is nowhere near as deep in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
The one thing Breath of the Wild has that I would love to see in Elden Ring is the telescope, where you can point at something and then put your marker down and then travel to it. Because you can't quite do that. You can put down a marker on your map, but it's not quite the same.
Yeah, so it's you can like look out in the distance and see like, oh, there's something over there, and then pull up your map and kind of like guesstimate where like on the map that thing that you saw would be, and then place a marker and then kind of go in that direction. But it's not the same. And they do, I don't know if you've seen the telescopes that they have.
No, I haven't.
So they have little like telescopes on the ground that you can go on the telescope and it'll give you like a bird's eye view of the surrounding area, and you can like look at all the different things around you and be like, oh, that looks cool, that looks cool, that looks cool, that looks cool.
Oh, that is cool.
But you can't mark anything.
Yeah.
You can just see what potentially all the things that you have to explore, and then make your decision from there. I'll agree that I would prefer to be able to mark things like you can in Breath of the Wild. I don't know if I would necessarily take points away for that.
No, that's not taking points away, but just one thing I would have liked that I think Breath of the Wild did, of the very few things, because I think I do prefer Elden Ring as a game. Yeah, I've only played 10 hours and I've played 150 of Breath of the Wild.
Right, same, yeah. and that could change, but as of right now, I feel like I'm completely in on Elden Ring.
Yeah.
Like 100%.
Yeah, and I can see, like, when I first started playing it, I didn't really understand it. I don't see why this game would get 10 out of 10s everywhere, but I could see if you were a reviewer and you got sucked in, like, how could you not give it a 10 out of 10?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, okay, I guess that can lead to my question. Would you give it, based on your 10 hours that you've played so far, would you give it a 10 out of 10?
Well, I'm a strong believer that something doesn't have to be perfect to get a 10 out of 10, because what is perfection anyway? Like, can a game even be perfect? There's always stuff you can add, but I think did the people who made the game, did they create something that was to the best of their abilities, and did they communicate their message, and is there anything that makes me dislike it? And I would say no. I would say that it would be a 10 out of 10 for me.
For me, 10 out of 10 means maximum enjoyment.
Yeah, it's about enjoyment, exactly.
And I think I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I was talking to one of my buddies at work yesterday, and he was telling me that a bunch of people are refunding it. And I feel like that is kind of now a problem with the scoring system of saying that it's 10 out of 10, because a lot of gamers that haven't played Souls games are seeing flooding the internet 10 out of 10 scores on this game Elden Ring. That iconic picture that's been floating around the internet the past couple days. It's the guy and then all the 10 out of 10s from all of the different review channels.
Yeah.
And I do think that maybe is a problem, because like, yeah, you can give it a number, but that number doesn't necessarily explain everything that there is about the game. Like yes, you can give it a 10 out of 10, but if you go in and read that review, that reviewer is going to be talking about the brutal, difficulty, and sort of that it's not something that you can play casually. And that's not something that people are seeing with like the little footnote 10 out of 10s that are floating around the internet.
Yeah. Well, and there's also, like, if you're just playing the first few hours, you're going to play it and think, I don't get what the fuss is about. Yeah. You've really got to like sink your teeth into it and give it some time and kind of explore the world and see the treasure chests and upgrade your character and find some cool new weapon that makes you feel like you're breaking the game until you get to an area that breaks you. Like that's like the Dark Souls experience. And
I'll say I was hooked very, very early, but I can understand how someone who isn't really into the Souls games, or even isn't really into like big open world games, would not necessarily like get the hype immediately.
Yeah. The other thing about it is I think there are some game designs decisions for an open world that I don't necessarily agree with. One of the big ones is the big giant troll boss at the beginning of the game, the Golden Knight on the horse that we looked at a little bit earlier.
Oh, yeah. The Tree Sentinel.
Yeah, the Tree Sentinel. Because when I first played the game, I completely went around him. I just figured, okay, I'm not supposed to go that way, because in every Dark Souls game, that's not the way you go. When you see a big giant boss, you have to go around them, or you have to find something else to do, and that's what they want you to do, but they want you to sneak around him and go into this church that's right behind him. But I just assumed this church was like a high level area and there's no reason for me to go there. So I went the majority of my first 10 hours without getting, like, I got summons, but I was like, I can't use these summons. I have absolutely no idea why.
Right, because immediately past the Tree Sentinel is the person who gives you the bell to do the summons.
Exactly. And so that was pretty frustrating.
I can agree with that, but the problem is that the game doesn't tell you that guy is basically there to be a tutorial for the stealth mechanics, but it doesn't say, like, at that moment, like, click L3 to crouch. It's just it expects you to be able to put together that, like, oh, there's bushes off to the side there's all these little side paths I can go around this guy. But yeah, I think maybe in some ways that is kind of how the Souls games are not benefiting by refusing to hold the gamer's hand at all. Like, it's actually detrimental in some ways.
Yeah. And I just think to myself, like, how hard would it have been there's an NPC right in front of you, like when you're about to, like right before the Tree Sentinel, and how hard would it have been to say, oh, I saw this merchant sneak past the Tree Sentinel.
Right. Yeah. But instead, that NPC just says, like, you don't stand a chance. Just give up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And there's so much in that chapel. There's the crafting thing that you have to get, the cracked pots that you need to use for crafting, like,
And the
there's a
crafting kit.
And the crafting kit, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
But there's like so much you have to get in this chapel, and it makes you think you're not supposed to go there until you're like super high level, which by the time you're that high level, you don't need your fire bombs. Well, you probably do, but you don't need your fire bombs anymore.
Right.
So that's like one of those things that's kind of frustrating when you look back and you just say, well, why did you make me think that I wasn't supposed to go that way?
Yeah, that's fair. I'll agree with that.
Which, I mean, obviously this is like nitpicks in a game that we both absolutely love.
Can I talk about the one thing that I'm absolutely not nitpicking, and maybe once I've put more than 10 hours into the game, I won't call it a 10 out of 10 because I'll be so frustrated about this. We briefly talked about it. It's the co-op. How have they not fixed co-op yet? It's insane to me. They came up with this stupid archaic co-op system for Demon's Souls because the PlayStation Network didn't work back then, so they had to find some stupid workaround, and now they've decided that's how they want co-op to be forever. You have to place a sign somewhere, and then someone else in the game has to find that sign, summon you in, and even if they go to summon you in, it probably won't even work half the time. And it's not even like network connections. It's just, sometimes co-op doesn't work. That's a mechanic of the game. You know, sometimes you call for help and help doesn't come, and they program it to be that way. It shouldn't be difficult to just, they have those little like stone things that you can activate, and it's like, oh, co-op is accessible now. Why not just let me go to that little altar and be like, summon someone? Like, right now I want someone to join in, or go, right now I want to be summoned, and then it'll just immediately. The network is great. Internet is amazing these days. It shouldn't be such a chore to just get someone in my game.
They've already programmed the multiplayer. That's the crazy thing about it. You've already made a multiplayer open world game. Like, that's insane. Like, how many open world multiplayer games are there? Grand Theft Auto
and Red Dead.
Yeah, but even those aren't even campaign multiplayer. Well, I don't know about Red Dead, but GTA is like just a online, crazy shoot everything kind of game. But like, they've already made the game where you can do the campaign together. Like, go all in with that. Make the multiplayer fun. I mean, do your whole Marie Kondo thing where you say like, oh, does this bring me joy? And you grab the things. Do you ever seen the meme, the Marie Kondo meme?
Does this one sparks joy?
Exactly, that's the one. Yeah, do that. Like, just spark joy in every Dark Souls game. Take the things like, and for the most part, they did. They took all the things that worked, kind of threw away some of the things that didn't work. But this was something that did not work. You could have fixed it so easily. How hard would it have been just to not make it hard to get the multiplayer going?
And they stuck with it. And it's funny because I had fully expected them to fix it by this one, because Sekiro was the most recent one before this, and they were like, we're just taking co-op completely out of this game. And I took that to mean that they understood that the co-op needed an overhaul. But instead, it was just Sekiro was just the outlier of the series, and they were like, no, nobody can do co-op in this game. But we're still going to bring back the stupid co-op system for Elden Ring, obviously. Still a 10 out of 10 for me. Like, sorry, but the co-op, there's just no excuse for it to be as bad as it is. And like I said, it could take from my enjoyment down the line. Right now, I haven't encountered anything, and that could also be part of it, is I haven't encountered anything that I felt like I couldn't do by myself. Like, co-op would be fun, but in the other Souls games, there's times where you're legitimately like, I need help from somebody else. Like, I can't face this challenge alone. But in Elden Ring, every single challenge that I've encountered, I've been like, you know what, I can do this. It would be fun to bring someone else in, but I can't figure that out, so I'm going to do it myself, and it's totally doable. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they shouldn't have put work into making the co-op system usable. One other thing that I did want to mention is I wonder, because of how open this game is and how much it's like all about exploration as opposed to just like straight gameplay. Because every other Souls game, once I beat it, I'm like, okay, I want to go through again now. Like, I want to use my upgraded weapons and equipment and stuff that I got, and I want to play through like that whole ordeal again. With this one, I wonder if I'm going to feel like playing through it again on New Game Plus once I beat it. Because I feel like so much of what I've enjoyed about this game is sort of like the exploration, like seeing things for the first time. I mean, like, whoa, that's crazy, that's insane. How did that get like that like child in a candy store feeling a little bit. And I feel like on a second playthrough that's not really going to be there, so I do wonder what the replayability like likelihood is on this.
Yeah, but I think once you get 100 hours in your game, you're kind of they're okay. Like, you're okay if you don't need to play more, if you don't need a second playthrough.
Yeah, that's fair. That is true.
But it's true. I can see definitely what you're saying about the wouldn't have as much. It's kind of like the Resident Evil games too, where they're only 4 hours long, but you can replay them endlessly because there's always things to unlock.
Yeah.
You're just kind of trying to build your. The trade-off there is once you've explored it, it's, you know, not all that fun to explore things a second time. And
that's a good point. You know, like, I'm 10 hours into this one, and I feel like, as opposed to, like, you know, I played through the Demon's Souls remake on PS5, and 10 hours in, just probably halfway through the game.
Yeah.
So you'd have done all your New Game Plus runs on another Souls game. You'll have put in probably less hours than you would on one playthrough of Elden Ring.
Okay, let's just do some final thoughts.
Cool.
What would thinking about picking up Elden Ring? They weren't sure about it. Who would you recommend it to? Who would you not recommend it to?
I would definitely recommend it to fans of the Souls games. And I would say who is willing to commit to the game rather than play it casually, because I don't think it's a game that you can play casually. Recommend to anybody that's thinking of picking it up to read the reviews that are giving it 10 out of 10s before they buy it. Just because it's getting 10 out of 10s doesn't mean it's for you.
Yeah, that's true. It's not the kind of game you just one thing I would also say is I wouldn't necessarily recommend it if you're just picking it up because of the George R.R. Martin thing.
I mean, I'll be honest, I love Game of Thrones. I have zero idea of what the story of this game is.
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't remember any of the characters. It just feels like normal character arcs from what I can tell in the first 10 hours, which, you know, there weren't any in the first 10 hours of Game of Thrones either. So,
you know, I'm going to love in a month going and watching a bunch of videos on Vati Vidya's channel about all the lore aspects. Fun. I love doing that. I've done it with all the Souls games, but I can guarantee that I'm gleaning zero information from the story of Elden Ring in my personal playthrough.
Yeah, I've never been big on Dark Souls lore personally.
That's fair. I mean, I think Bloodborne has the best lore out of all of them.
Bloodborne, when I play it and you like knock on someone's door and they're saying like, oh, it's a hunt, and then I took out a boss last night, the very first boss in the game, and it's like prey slaughter. I was like, okay, that's interesting that they're the prey and I'm the hunter.
Correct.
Which I don't know anything about the story, but those like little tidbits make me excited.
I'll send you some lore videos. You're gonna enjoy the lore videos just watching something on YouTube more than you would enjoy trying to actually go into Bloodborne and like reading all the codex entries and like actually trying to piece everything together.
Yeah, you need like a university degree in Dark Souls lore.
Yeah, it's like a puzzle itself. It's like gameplay piecing the lore together in these games.
That's like Hollow Knight. Even though Hollow Knight's probably my top 3 favorite games of all time, I'm not a huge fan of the lore. I just don't care that much.
Gotcha.
If it's not an important enough story for it to be something I would get in a playthrough, it just doesn't really matter. Like, I like that it's there because I like feeling like the world is lived in.
Yeah.
But I just don't care all that much to know what's going on.
I gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, verdict is definitely about as good as it can be, in my opinion, other than the co-op. So if you're going to pick it up, though, make sure you understand what you're getting. Yeah, that would be my final verdict on it.
You have to have a lot of patience. You have to be willing to sink in a lot of time. And I would say I would almost recommend it more to people who are looking for more Breath of the Wild.
Oh yeah, totally.
Than people who are looking for more Dark Souls. Because even though the gameplay is like identical, that switch to an open world, which you won't even understand at all until you're like 10 hours in, just completely changes the game.
Yeah.
Which is super cool, but also might be disappointing for some Dark Souls fans.
I agree. Cool. So now that we've talked about the game for 1/10 the length that we've played it.
Oh yeah.
I'd say maybe it's time to play some more, huh?
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks for checking out our video on Elden Ring.
Yeah, hopefully we didn't bore you.
Hopefully not. Maybe we did. Too bad. You already watched it.
So moving forward, the two of us are going to be doing a new show together on this channel.
The Jam Sesh.
And we're going to sort of review / discuss indie games, some more commercial, some from small developers that are making games for like game jams and stuff like that.
Yeah, so whether you're a big developer or you're just a tiny little person making a tiny person, doesn't matter your height or your weight.
I tried to make a video game. I can't reach the keyboard.
We
Sorry.
No, that's this is for you. So if you've got an indie game that you want us to play, submit it on the forum, and we will be happy to check them out.
Jam Sesh.